Joining me, Mr. Wu Xinbo, Director of the Center of American Studies with Fudan University in China. Mr. Wu, what a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
I understand that during the last trip President Carter made to China, he joined you and others at the American Studies Center in Fudan University. What was your reflection upon that visit, the very last he had in China?
That visit was on September the 9th, 2014, at which year he turned 90, and which was also his last trip to China. We were very fortunate to have him visit us at Fudan University and to have a discussion with our students and faculty members. I had a very vivid memory of his visit. He felt very excited with, sitting down with young students at Fudan University and talking about his decision to normalize relations with China. In particular, he told us how he made the decision to open the door for Chinese students to go to study in the United States. And he was very proud of that legacy. And the discussion went on for more than 1 hour. At the end of the discussion, he went to the audience, shaking hands with students sitting on the fourth row and chatting with them. So that surprised all of us because he had a very tight schedule on that day, and the discussion already, went over the schedule. But still, he liked to engage with our students. Mm-hmm. So very lively discussion and interaction with us.
But 10 years later, your students, most of them were born after the year 2000. How are they looking at President Carter's legacy? What is their level and sophistication of understanding of President Carter and also the relations between China and the United States?
I think they lack personal experience of relations between our two countries in the last several decades. What they saw today is, the rising tension between China and the United States, and the U.S., continues to pursue a so-called strategic competition with China. What they need to do, and I try to help them to understand, is that actually before 2016, and even in the time when Jimmy Carter visited us, we were still in a period of, more cooperation than competition. So it was normalization that really introduced a period of cooperation and reconciliation and exchanges between our two countries. So for the younger generation, sometimes it's difficult for them to imagine that how President Carter could make a decision in the Cold War era to normalize relations with country. And today, this country, China, is regarded by many in the U.S. as a major strategic competitor. So it is the responsibility for people like us who benefited from, normalization over the decades to tell our students this legacy left by President Jimmy Carter and Mr. Deng Xiaoping.
Now, we see continued research about each other in China and United States. However, the mood of the research, the backdrop of the research, and oftentimes the conclusion of the research are so different from that, let's just say, before 2016 and much earlier. So what do you think are the responsibilities of the academic communities on both sides between China and the United States?
The changes in this relationship of the last decade had a lot to do with the changing international circumstances for Sino-U.S. relations. And I think exchanges between our two countries are becoming more and more difficult. I think to some extent, the U.S. policy that has been taken by the Trump administration, both Trump administration and the Biden administration, has not been that encouraging for, people-to-people exchanges between two sides. Now, what scholars in both countries should do under the current circumstances? I think the most important thing is that we should firmly believe in the value of people-to-people exchanges, no matter how political relations between our two countries may become difficult. And also, we should work very hard with the resources that we possess to encourage people-to-people exchanges. For example, I still encourage my students, to study in the United States. And also, I encourage my colleagues at the center to work out with our counterparts in the United States. So, in a time when bilateral relations are becoming more difficult, it's very important to maintain the ties between, students and scholars in both countries. After all, the future of this relationship lies with the people in both countries.
Professor Wu, as far as I understand, you and some of your Chinese colleagues, together with some of your American counterparts, have been working against the headwinds in order to create more opportunities of academic exchanges between the two sides. My respect to you and some of your Chinese counterparts in different parts of this country. But what does it take in order to have that courage? It's always easy to go with the wind, not easy to go against the wind, as we all know.
Well, it takes two things. One is a firm belief. Second is courage. I did those things with a strong belief that people-to-people exchanges are the right thing, are the good thing, and are the necessary thing for China and the United States. And I personally benefited a lot from academic exchange between two countries. I entered Fudan University as a research fellow, faculty member in 1992. And in 1994, I got an opportunity to be a visiting scholar at the George Washington University as sponsored by a U.S. program. It's called Program for International Studies in Asia. So that was my first year to do my research in the United States, in Washington, D.C. That experience really opened my horizon, opened my eyes for American studies. And in that 1 year, I got to know many American scholars and built personal relationship with them. And this friendship, this working relationship has continued in the following decades. So that benefited a lot my professional career. So that is why I think academic exchange is important and necessary. And also I believe this is good for both countries because through people-to-people exchanges, you improve the mutual understanding between two sides and reduce the misperception and misjudgment between two sides. And secondly, you do the thing with courage. Of course, there are always, difficulties and challenges. However, if you believe that is the right thing to do, you should try your best. I mean, it's just like President Carter, when he made a decision in 1978 to normalize relations with China, there were huge domestic political opposition back in the United States. But President Carter believed that normalizing relations with China was important, was good for American interests. So he just went ahead to make the right decision.
Professor Xinbo, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.